The 1970s were a great time for disaster movies. Back then they came out with amazing films like Earthquake, The Poseidon Adventure, one of my favorites, The Swarm. If those goddamn kids hadn't been f***ing with those bees, nobody would have died. It was all their fault. We had Airport, and really the only thing that that movie did for us was give us the parody spoofs Airplane and Airplane 2. And this brings me to the 1974 classic, The Towering Inferno. One thing that ties all these great 70s disaster films together, and they've tried to duplicate this today, but they just don't get it right. But back then they had 7 to 10 individual plot lines through each of these films that always revolved around certain characters. They build them up in the beginning. You know, you always had the pregnant woman, then there was somebody that just got fired, and maybe he was all rattled up, and there was some sketchy business person that made some shady deal that caused these problems to begin with. The young couple, there were always stupid kids thrown into the mix, a couple old people on vacation, a retired police officer, somebody with a heart problem. All of these characters had to try and survive whatever horrible disaster was trying to crush, incinerate, or flood them, while solving all of their personal problems and difficulties. This was all tied together by a leading character, a leading man, who in the case of The Towering Inferno was Steve McQueen. But let's get to the Atari 2600 video game, Towering Inferno. The back of the box says Towering Inferno trademark, owned by 20th Century Fox Film Corporation and used by U.S. Games Corporation under authorization. But this doesn't appear to be a direct movie-related video game. For instance, we don't see Steve McQueen's picture, or Paul Newman, or the burning building from the movie on the packaging anywhere. And maybe that's what makes this game succeed. Maybe by using the title of the movie but not directly tying it to the movie, they're able to make a better video game. Because at no point in the Towering Inferno film did Steve McQueen have to bring people to the roof to individually get helicoptered down in groups of 4s. That would have been a very silly movie. But somehow it works very well in this video game. There could be a lesson in there for new movie-themed video games today. This is a tremendous game. And if you haven't figured it out by now, you play as the blue fireman in the middle of the screen. And it's your job to try to get to the white block at the top of the screen by dodging the fire or shooting the fire with your water hose. And the white block represents a group of survivors. At the top left-hand corner of the screen, you'll see a number. That's what floor you're on. Each building has 9 floors that you have to complete. You start off with 4 survivors, and as time goes on, each one of them dies. Few Atari games get you emotionally involved like this one, because each time one of the survivors dies, it lets out this huge Atari squawk, and you genuinely feel really bad about it. Or at least I do, maybe it's just me. This is a great video game because the fire is very erratic, so it's not easy to just dodge. So you try to shoot it with your hose, but you don't always get it. So sometimes it takes a little bit of time to shoot down the fire with the hose. And in that time, survivors are dying. You can try to run through the fire and dodge it, but you can also get hit by the fire and die very easily. So it's a game of chance and a game of skill and a game of risk. How they've managed to incorporate this into one Atari 2600 game that's still enjoyable about 30 years after it was released is beyond me. Because this game is entertaining enough to be a lot of fun, yet challenging enough to keep you coming back for more and trying to save more and more survivors and finish more and more buildings. You want that feeling when your helicopter lands and 4 survivors rush out. You don't want the feeling when the helicopter lands and only 1 survivor rushes out, because then you know that in the Atari land, which is like Tron, the world of Tron that is, that if your helicopter has landed and you've saved only one survivor, that there's 3 pixelated living beings within that Atari game that are real that died. It may be just a video game to you, but to somebody else in a fictional Atari Tron-based world, it's real.